News 24 has been onto the Paul Mashatile story for a while now. Quite strong allegations that are being made. But there's a very interesting angle that was exposed this morning. A company called Valumax. Valumax is a, multi-billion rand company. Amongst the directors, none other than Jacques Schinderhitter, who was tipped to be the chief executive of ABSA. In fact, he was the chief executive, or certainly very senior, at Telkom for a period of time. He's on that board, and they're being accused of some pretty heinous stuff. We're going to be talking with Francois Nortje in just a moment. Francois, this is a story that you've been bringing me up to date on over a period of years, I could say, and it's quite complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by just looking at a little bit of what News 24 published this morning. And once we get into that, once we can perhaps illustrate that a little bit better, we'll be able to then pick up on the key part of the of today's story, which really is to do with the Steinhoff involvement. I mean, Steinhoff? Yeah, it's got Steinhoff involved here as well. It's actually a huge and cracking story, and well done to News 24 for getting to the bottom of it, or at least inadvertently, perhaps from their perspective. But a really, really big story that we can now get your insights into all of this. But let me just start off, Francois, first of all, with the big News 24 expose. They've been going at Paul Mashatile for a period of time now and exposing, I suppose, primarily the way that people have been paying money to his lovers or ex-lovers. And the big story today was to do with an ex-lover of his called Gugu Nkosi, and how Gugu Nkosi had been paid 900,000 rand, and this is not disputed, by a gent by the name of Teddy Griever. Teddy Griever, and this is the way News 24 described it. There he is near the center of your picture. Teddy Griever is an executive director, has been for many years, of a company called Valumax. Valumax, a multi-billion rand company, which admits to have given the ANC 29.5 million rand. Griever admits to have paid 900,000 to Gugu Nkosi, who you can see there in the picture with Paul Mashatile. And she is, I think, admitted to have been Mashatile's former lover. So that's the whole kind of focus story of News 24. But where we want to concentrate, Francois, is on Valumax, this company Valumax. And I looked at the website. You can see their values include ethical business practices. It's a company that's been going for almost 30 years. It has big developments in various parts of Gauteng, but I see also a $150 million shopping center in Angola, and it has directors. They're the same Teddy Griever, an executive director, but if you look down the bottom, Jacques Schinderhitter, who's extremely well known as a business personality in South Africa. But he's not the guy that we want to talk about this morning. The person where it all comes in from your perspective is Francois Bekker, the chap on the top left in the screen, or as we now see him on the screen. How do you know Francois Bekker, Francois?
I've been in the property business 35 years, selling and buying land and all kinds of stuff in property. I can't recall where I met him, but I've known him for at least 25 years. Never been to his house or never been to his office, never been to mine. But we talk every now and then. Well, we talked every now and then. I've got about 600 people on my phone list. And when we launched the Port of Gauteng at the end of 2019, I will send them a short clip about the Port of Gauteng, an advert. And then he phoned me and asked me some questions, and we talk every now and then. And then February 2020, that's the shocking day in my life. I can remember where I stood when I got a call from him asking me to come to Stellenbosch to meet his friend, because his friend is the actual beneficial owner of a large part of Tambo Springs.
Let's stop there. Let's just stop there a bit. So, Port of Gauteng and Tambo Springs, what exactly are they?
They are both planned inland ports in Gauteng. And Tambo Springs sits further out than Port of Gauteng and hasn't got any services. And they need to build an access road off the N3 around those two total filling stations to give them access. And that road is called the K148. And in February 2020, I and my company launched an interim interdict application to stop Gautrans from building that road because of lots of irregularities, according to us, in the EIA, one which include the wetland report that was altered on the basis of Advocaat du Plessis from the Steinhoff group, the financial legal advisor to Markus Jooste and main board director of Steinhoff.
So let's not run ahead too far. Du Plessis, he's a central character in the story, and clearly, to go back to your story and that what you call your shocking day, and off you went to Stellenbosch. But before we get there, when you drive along the N3 between Johannesburg and Durban, coming into Johannesburg, in other words, where all the big trucks come for with the cargo from the port to come to the commercial heartland, you will see on the right-hand side, closer to Johannesburg, beyond Heidelberg, is Port of Gauteng. It's now very well marked. Before Port of Gauteng, coming from Durban, on the left-hand side are a couple of Total petrol stations. And is that where Tambo Springs, in other words, the competitor almost to yourselves, is to be based?
The Total filling stations on left and right-hand side of the road. Small portion of Tambo Springs is on the right, which is in the Lesedi, and the bulk is on the left if you come into Joburg, 2,000 hectares.
Now, you've been telling me for a few years now that there's been skulduggery afoot at Tambo Springs, whereas clearly you have a vested interest in doing this because, for transparency, you own Port of Gauteng. So this is your competitor. But go back now to your story of when you went to Stellenbosch.
No, I never went to Stellenbosch. I got the invite. But just before that, in August the year before, we found out that, or it appeared that the EIA for that road, the K148 planned road that needs to go through those total filling stations, giving access to the port, to Tambo Springs, is flawed. It's got some serious flaws in it. We wrote to the province and GDAR 3 times. They ignored us. In February 2020, we brought urgent interdict, interim interdict, because we got the tender documents in December. Then we saw we were correct. The EIA is flawed. And we brought it on early February. And just after we brought the interdict application, I got the phone call from Francois Bekker inviting me to Stellenbosch to go and meet his good friend, person that I will like, a very nice guy by the name of Danie van der Merwe. And I asked him, why? Who's Danie van der Merwe? And he says he's actually the beneficial owner of that part of Tambo Springs.
So let's stop there for a minute. Danie van der Merwe, Chief Operating Officer of Steinhoff.
That's then when I asked him, I said, Danie van der Merwe, the ex-Chief Operating Officer of Steinhoff? And he confirmed, yes. And I think he could hear the shock in my voice. And then I never went to Stellenbosch, but it was a very clear disclosure to me that that land there is about 7 or 8 land parcels. They each in a different company. And until 2018, the sole director of all those companies that own those parcels was Mr. du Plessis. And that's what I always was under the impression. It belongs to an Advocaat du Plessis. I never made the connection with Steinhoff. And then when they confirmed that it's Danie van der Merwe, that's actually the beneficial owner, or so claimed by Francois Bekker. I was amazed and shocked. And then I started looking for documents around Tambo Springs or whatever. And then Easter weekend, an angel gave me Tambo Springs' EIA application. And the part that's not owned by Advocaat du Plessis and Van der Merwe and whatever. And there they list the neighbors, and the neighbors is, the email address for the neighbor is Stella@Steinhoff. So the one owner knows that the other owners are Steinhoff, or I assume Stella is a secretary to Advocaat du Plessis or somebody at Steinhoff. Then we got confirmation that either Steinhoff employees or Steinhoff shareholders, or I can't tell you who, but Steinhoff and Merwe, Advocaat du Plessis. And in that letter that you saw that I wrote to the Reserve Bank's attorneys, I said, it's highly unlikely that Markus Jooste would not be involved if Advocaat du Plessis and Danie van der Merwe is involved. And that's where I became aware that it is the link between Steinhoff and that land.
So Steinhoff, let's just assume Jooste and Co. own the land, own Tambo Springs. Well, certainly du Plessis is very close to Jooste, and so was Danie van der Merwe, and this is before the big collapse in 2017, that they were joined at the hip.
I just want to correct something. It's not all of Tambo Springs. There's 3 landowners that makes up the 2,200 hectares of Tambo Springs. This is the 500 hectares, 400 to 500 hectares along the N3 around the total filling stations.
All right. So they are, anyway, we have made the Steinhoff connection, and that is beyond doubt. But now let's get back to Francois Bekker, because Francois Bekker is with Valumax, which is now being fingered by News 24 as, paying off a few of Paul Mashatile's friends, I'll put it that way. What about Francois Bekker? How is his connection then with Tambo Springs?
As I said, he was just the person that invited me to come to Stellenbosch to meet his good friend, which I will like very much, who is the CEO, who is the ex-chief operating officer of Steinhoff. So he was just the connection that invited me, and which I found shocking, that one can think that an ex-COO of Steinhoff is a nice person, and that just blew up that the Steinhoff boys is involved with the land. But now where the connection, so what gets to me, Advocaat du Plessis influenced the wetland report that was done for this road in the EIA. He influenced it totally wrongly. The wetland report is flawed because of his influence on it. We've disclosed that in papers to the Gauteng government in our court cases. The Gauteng government refused to accept that wetland report is flawed and that the EIA is flawed. Now I'm asking the question, why would Panyaza Lesufi and his gang, and before him David Makura and his guys, keep on fighting a fight that they cannot win? I can sit with somebody one day, I'll show you how flawed the wetland report is, and now it became super flawed after Advocaat du Plessis got involved and got the wetland specialist to change the report. What he got her to do is basically the wetland behind the total filling station. He got her to declare it synthetic, artificial. It's not artificial. 2 or 3 years later, that same companies, when he was no longer a director, did their own stormwater study, their water feeding thing, and they show that it's not synthetic, that it's being fed from about 7 or 8 different positions, that wetland. So the question is, why does the ANC protect Advocaat du Plessis, Danie van der Merwe's flawed project, and going to court, even they know they can't win it? It's clearly flawed. And then you see Valumax and you see Paul Mashatile, and then I'm asking bigger questions. I would rather not ask the questions. I think the people can connect the dots for themselves.
Why not ask those questions? That is what...
Why is Markus Jooste not been arrested in South Africa? Why is Danie van der Merwe, I saw him about 6 months ago in Rosebank, eating, drinking, laughing, sitting there for extended lunch, surrounded by 4 or 5 people. Why are these people walking? And I just want to say, I've never had a Steinhoff share. There's a long reason. I never trusted Markus Jooste. I come from the horse racing background, and I know how much time horse racing takes. And to have 2,000 stores and 200 racehorses, which he had in 2003. A mate of mine is now a big bookmaker, confirmed it with me. Doesn't trust Markus Jooste. We that grew up in the horse racing industry knows how much time it takes out of your life. That he's a horse racing owner. The business is a bluff. So I've never had Steinhoff shares. But I feel for it. My sister had, my friends have had. They've lost big pockets of money. And these guys still carrying on. And maybe this is the connection. I don't know. There's a lot of dots that needs to be connected. But yeah, there are people that think Danie van der Merwe is a hero and wanting to help him to preserve his assets. This then clearly shows there are assets. And that's why I wrote to the Reserve Bank in October last year. I sent you a copy of the letter and gave them the information to the attorney that did the court order to preserve the assets in the Cape. And if you go and look at the SIPS records that I send you, what is interesting, there's a Jooste.
The directors, yeah.
Yeah, there's a Jooste from Onrus in Hermanus. That's a director of that company now. Advocaat du Plessis resigned. And Maria Magdalena du Plessis became the director. And a guy from Onrus, also with the surname of Jooste. So might be very coincidental, but it's very coincidental if this Jooste is not connected to the other Jooste. And the addresses are here. And then Advocaat du Plessis and this Jooste and Mrs. du Plessis and this Jooste shares the same postal address in Hermanus. So I think maybe somebody, investigative journalist, needs to look closer at this. And but my big question is, the ANC knows that it's Advocaat du Plessis in Gauteng. They're carrying on with court cases. We're in court next year, 26, 7, 8, 29 in February. We're actually in court on Friday, where they have applied for leave to appeal 265 days late. Can you believe it? You have to apply for leave to appeal within 15 days. The judgment we got was 4 February last year. We're now on Friday in court for the leave to appeal. So they keep on pushing. They're going Stalingrad at us. They're pushing every thing that trying to stop us, trying to set aside this EIA for this road. And one of the important things of why this road EIA is flawed is because of Advocaat du Plessis' intervention that made the wetland report totally flawed.
It's an extraordinary, extraordinary story, but there is nothing on earth that is more powerful than the truth, and the truth will out eventually. If you join the dots for us, do it hypothetically if you like. Where do they all come together?
That Markus Jooste and these guys have had the ANC on their payroll. Same as Valumax, giving donations, helping the premier's girlfriends and stuff like that. That's what it looks to me. And that's why they keep on pushing for this thing. And that's how it looks to me. Because there's no reason why they can defend that EIA is so flawed. And I can go through with you one day when you've got more time. But it's fatally flawed on numerous aspects. And it just seems, that there's, I never would have thought it, but it looks like the Steinhoff guys have got some of the ANC guys in their pocket. And that's maybe why Danie van der Merwe can walk around and Markus Jooste can walk around.
How big is the Tambo Springs project? In other words, how much is at stake here?
There's 2,200 hectares, of which about 1,700 hectares is developable. And now this is where it's getting, because there are 500 hectares of wetlands there. This thing is surrounded by 330 degrees by water. Most of it was outside the urban edge. Ekurhuleni wanted it as its green lung. So it's an environmental sensitive thing. And now if you take the raw land, say at 300 rand square meter when the townships is approved and can be serviced, because there's lots of land as well. It's 5 billion rands worth of land. So it's a massive project. And nothing can happen if they can't build the K148 road.
Francois Nortje is the project developer of Port of Gauteng. And I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.